Okay, so following on from that challenge from Jenny, I'm going to suggest to you as a citizens' assembly that our best way of going faster in Oxford is to build on all of the fantastic stuff that we've been doing over a long time now to get people involved, to get people engaged, to get people working together, because we all know how hard it is to do that stuff to our homes. So we need long-term, sustainable, continuous support to be able to do that. And I think we've made some fantastic starts in Oxford about how to engage people. I'm just going to run you through where we are and suggest to you where we might think about going afterwards. So this is a picture of my own community in West Oxford in the summer floods of 2007. And you can see that we were quite passionate about that summer flood being an expression of climate change. That was the year before the Climate Change Act came in, and there was a sudden upswell of focus and activity and desire to do something about this enormous problem. And a lot of people were thinking about it at that point, and this is a slide. These are quite historic slides. I went all the way through my archive to pick up what we've been doing. This was a really great guy called Ian Curtis at the Environmental Change Institute at the university, just trying to map out all of the groups, activities, people he knew of who were trying to think about this problem of climate change and how we might organise ourselves in the city and the county to do something about it. And you can see there are an enormous number of blobs on there, but it's quite unstructured. And we had lots of debate at that point about how we could get that ecosystem, that emergent ecosystem of people, to be more structured and more systematic about making the change happen. And we got quite frustrated at points, but very luckily, we have an absolutely amazing city council, and I really don't think that I would want to underestimate the fantastic job that they, or understate the fantastic job they've done over time in leading on this stuff. So the city was thinking at the same time about what they could do to bring the city council's house in order, how they could contribute to this activity that we needed to do to get carbon emissions down. And they, at that point in 2011, so this is all sort of the 2008 to 2000 sort of 10-11 era, decided that they would reduce their emissions by 25% over, I think it was a 3-year period, 5-year period at the time, I can't quite remember, 5-year period. But they didn't get very far into that work before they realised that doing that was only going to have an impact on 1% of the total city emissions. So they started thinking about how to deal with that reality. And they did some really strategic, collaborative work at that point to think about how we might get traction on the big emitters in the city. And I think it was at that point that John Tanner, who some of you might remember, who was a councillor for a long time and the board member for Cleaner Greener for a long time, gave a target for the city that we all thought at that point was absolutely impossible. But we went, okay, that's John, we just have to go with it. He said he wanted to get the city to a 40% reduction in carbon emissions against the 2005 baseline by 2020. Okay, so we're in 2019, and I think Tim may have something to say about this, but my understanding is that we're not going to be very far off a target that when John set it, we all thought was completely impossible. How have we done that in Oxford? Well, clearly, a proportion of that emissions reduction has been because the UK has been decarbonising, as Jenny was saying. But there's a big chunk of it that's been done because we've all done radical things. And the City Council started a thing called Low Carbon Oxford, which I think Tim again is going to talk about a little bit more, This is a slide and a photograph from the very beginning of that in 2010. And the point of that was to try and get everybody together pledging on that charter to reduce their carbon emissions by 3% every year, year on year. And that's not a trivial thing for a big company like BMW to sign up to. They had to go all the way back to their headquarters in Munich to get permission to sign up to a target like that. But they did. But the really fantastic thing about that was that that top group there isn't a big business, it's a community group. Low Carbon West Oxford, it's a charity in my bit of Oxford, and there's a whole history to that. But the key thing for me was that the City Council at that point and ever since have been thinking about how they include everybody in this change. And I think the challenge of the net zero climate emergency targets now is that we don't get there unless we include absolutely everybody. We don't make those changes to our buildings unless we include absolutely everybody in understanding what they've got to do. And we all know from our own houses and our own businesses that that's not an easy thing to do. So Low Carbon Oxford was an absolutely critical part of getting collaboration going in Oxford, starting to make sense of that bubble map that Ian did right at the beginning. And sorry about the squashed Oxfordshire there, but the thing that we as the Low Carbon Hub noticed quite early on was that there are a huge number of communities right across the city and the county who were passionate about tackling climate change, tackling sustainability, and were doing a huge amount of stuff in their voluntary time with very little support. And so our thesis or our hypothesis was that if we could get regular, reliable, community-focused, community-led support into those people, they could be a key part of that change. And I think, that's my real focus today. The technical challenges of what we do, we can describe now. We really know about them. We're not going to do those unless we crack the people problem. Yeah. And so we worked with the City Council to set up the Low Carbon Hub. And the hypothesis there was that if we could install or develop enough renewable energy, we could make enough money to spend on community benefit to support all of those communities in their areas to do more stuff and to do it long term without the volunteers burning out. And I think over the last 18 months to 2 years, I would say we've finally got that model working in the way that we wanted it to. This is our launch event in December 2011. And we've now got over 1,000 investor members, and we work with 26 communities across the city and the county. We've got a huge amount more to do. We have 300 geographic communities in the county. I think we're doing really well with the number of groups that we've got working on this stuff in the city, but it is a huge challenge. But we're starting to get there, and we're starting to see how we can really leverage on that money and that involvement. So just more stats about our network. It's an ecosystem that we've got to get here of people who know how to work together. We've worked with serious people across the city and the county. Both universities and the city in the city have been amazing. And we've done some amazing stuff, which I probably don't have time to go through in detail at the moment. But we work together to get serious money out of Europe. Oxfuture's one to concentrate on how to roll out renewables in Oxfordshire. And it's amazing standing here in 2019 to hear Jenny talking about where we are in quadrupling renewable energy to get to a zero carbon electricity system in the UK that can also drive transport and provide space heating. When we started in 2010 with the feed-in tariff, we were learning how to do an 11 kilowatt solar array on the King's Central Knowsley Mead. And that felt really difficult at the time. So, if you lose hope, just think back to where we were at that point. We've come a huge way, and we can go a huge way. So Ox Futures 1 was a collaboration between us, the city, and the county. Ox Futures 2, we've built on that, and we're into helping SMEs now, and we're into what is that systematic change going to be for Oxfordshire, and who has to collaborate to make that happen. And so we've spun out of that a whole range of things that are intended to have a sustainable life to them. So you as a citizens' assembly are here to not just work for us on what the technical solutions are and whether we're signing up to net zero by when. You're also here to be thinking about how you can bring different perspectives from different sections of society to help us make these activities better. So I'll talk about Leo in a minute, but Oxfordshire Green Tech is about a sustainable way of networking businesses to do energy efficiency and new products and services. Energy efficiency for business premises is about a sustainable way of getting funding into those businesses. Cosy Homes Oxfordshire is about, again, a sustainable business for meeting the challenge that Jenny set us. I'm very happy to answer questions about that. And then Project Leo is about how we get that deep renewable energy, zero carbon system happening in Oxfordshire. And that rests on some networking that the University of Oxford did for itself as well. So it's all about different sections structuring that bubble diagram that I showed right at the beginning. Until they set up the Oxford Energy Network in the university, they did not know that they had 180 senior researchers working on different aspects of this. We have got an amazing resource there, right in the heart of the city, of people who are at the global cutting edge of all of this stuff. If we can get them working with us, which we are starting to do, we can really get somewhere. And that leads to Project Leo, which is a spin-out from Ox Futures 2, where we are going to demonstrate that a local energy market is actually possible, where you join up all of that renewable energy with storage, and you start trading that for local benefit. That's what the diagram of the project looks like. It's £40 million worth of private sector investment and public sector investment together. And the Low Carbon Hub is little community-focused, social justice-focused social enterprise is right at the heart of that, which we couldn't have imagined back in 2010. This is the way that we have to operate. And then just on the map, very quickly, you can tell where Oxford City is on that. The key part is that it is fairly dark purple, which means that in terms of renewable energy wealth, it's quite poor because it's a city and all of the reasons that Jenny was talking about. So one of the things that I would challenge you to be thinking about is how we collaborate within the city, but how does the city collaborate with its surrounding area to be able to share resources? Is it something that we can seriously do within an administrative boundary or not? If you say yes, then fine, but I'm just saying that I think we should ask the question. And we've also got this amazing project. It's another £40 million project. It's amazing that 2 out of 4 demonstrators of the new energy system are happening in Oxford. That is because we've been collaborating for so many years, and we have a group of people, an ecosystem of people who really trust each other and know each other well enough to respond very quickly to new opportunities. That's the way that people need to be involved and engaged and be working together. This is going to be one of our ways of solving that. How do you get the energy out of the grid and into the cars? I'm sure Tim will be talking about that a little bit more. Anyway, if anybody wants to know any more, that's a socking great battery. And we can talk about that a little bit more, if anybody wants to. But the point is that it only happened because people were able quickly to respond to an opportunity. And ultimately what it means is that every single school, every single home, every single business is involved in the way that these kids at Lark Rise School were involved in us putting solar PV on their roof. But it also means, just as a fairly flippant ending to the presentation, that climate change is going to, and the effort to deal with it is going to mean something different to every single person in the room. I like this one because I'm female, and probably after #MeToo, I'm the only type of person who could put a slide up like this. But this said a lot of things to me. This is a brilliant way of showing us what the problem is. So in order for us to wear knickers like that, we've heated our homes in a way that's caused climate problems, okay? But we've got to deal with it in a way that allows me to carry on wearing knickers like that rather than going back to knickers like that. That's the challenge, okay guys?